budget policy statement to be better than this one?
Mr. Speaker.
I call Maggie Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The only thing going backwards in this House is that member's popularity. Mr. Tricky David Cunliffe, this is an individual who rants and raves and stampedes and makes very loud statements about everything. What has he actually achieved as the leader of this party in this year? Very little. He's gone backwards. His own party don't trust him. This is a guy who trumpeted in this House for such a long time that we needed to reform legislation in relation to donations that effectively precluded the use of trusts. So what did he do? He established a trust for his leadership battle. The other contenders were honest enough about their trusts, but he was not. There are a lot of questions that need to be answered. But as we head towards the September 20th election, Mr. Speaker, it's time to put aside the distracting antics of the relentlessly negative opposition parties, the uneasy and motley alliance of tired old Labour who are really bereft of ideas and of energy. They want to borrow more, they want to spend more than we can afford, and then they want to raise taxes through the roof. The increasingly rancid Greens, who do not represent the environmental and conservation concerns that their name might suggest. I'll talk a little bit about that a little later in my call. But let's focus at the moment on the issues that really do matter to our communities and to this country. That is a stronger economy. As others have said, we are on track for getting the books back into surplus. There are more jobs now because of the strong economy. 66,000 more people are employed now than there were a year ago, more of them. There's better frontline health and education services and a much safer New Zealander. I intend for my call here today to examine the good progress that this John Key-led national government has achieved. We have a very busy legislative agenda that we're sticking to and a very clear plan that we are also sticking to. In the area I represent on Auckland's North Shore, we're very well aware of the advantages of building a stronger economy. Unemployment, we appreciate, is down to 6% and it's trending in the right direction, downwards, and that's because of the more competitive and more productive economy. It all traces back to that, and those are the sort of issues that New Zealanders are most concerned about. They're not distracted by the antics and the sideshow pony tricks of the opposition forces, such as they are. Interest rates, as we know, are at a 50-year low. Government spending is well under control, and inflation is currently running at 1.6%, and that's much better than it was when we inherited the Treasury benches back in 2008, when it was over 5%. On a day-to-day level, we know that we are living in safer communities with the lowest reported crime in 33 years. Some of the trends that are on the up and up, going through the roof even, business confidence. It's at its highest level in 20 years. The economy grew at 3.5% in the past year, and we don't want to put that at risk. The economy is doing well, but it's a fragile recovery, and this government is committed to ensuring that it continues. Let's look at a specific group, the seniors. This government is making sure that older New Zealanders have the security, the well-being, and the overall respect that they deserve. Our seniors who have worked hard and really do deserve to enjoy their retirements. We have recognised that in many tangible ways over the past 5 years. Yes, that's quite all right, Chris Ockenvale. You do appreciate it as a man over 65 in his prime. The net rate of superannuation for married couples is up 25% in the past 5 years. That's up by an extra $183 a fortnight. And the single living alone payment has increased by more than $125 a fortnight. Now, since the last Labour government in 2008, the consumer price index has increased by 12%. And with that net rate for super up 25%, that does represent a much faster rate of increase for seniors than any other beneficiaries in New Zealand. New Zealand's faster economic growth has certainly benefited our seniors, and they deserve it. This year we are investing more than $1.55 million on aged care, and that's an increase of more than 60% on what Labour spent back in 2008. We're spending more as well on people in aged care, on respite care, carer support and new clinical assessment tools for older New Zealanders. That's really going to make a difference to the quality of life of our older people. I feel in particular it's commendable what we've done with Alzheimer's, the amount of money that we've put into that. My own mother had a long journey with dementia, and I was very upset to see the lack of advocacy for many of those older people who didn't have friends and family to keep an eye on them. I was patron of 12 years for Wellington Alzheimer's, and I know very well how difficult it has been to raise public awareness as well as to raise necessary funds. So I'm very proud indeed that we have put more money into this important area. At the moment in New Zealand, there are 48,000 New Zealanders who suffer from some form of dementia in some degree. By 2050, that will have tripled to 150,000 New Zealanders. That's increasing at a rate of 4% a year. Dementia we have labelled as a priority. $100 million specifically has been put towards services. That's home support, so that people with dementia-related conditions can stay in their homes for longer, and that the people who care for them can have more support and better training to be able to do the jobs that they do well and do it even better. To me, it isn't just a matter of clinical care, but it is also a matter of people attracted to that profession who have compassion, because that's one of the many qualities that is required. For dementia bed subsidies, 25%, that has increased by 25% over the past 5 years, and we've allocated $3.2 million in the last budget to something that I have been involved with for a very long time, which is early diagnosis of dementia. Unless you realise know and understand what to look for, it's quite easy to miss those initial signs with dementia and not to see until it's too late, and to perhaps misunderstand the symptoms and to misunderstand the behaviour changes that do occur. So to put money into raising awareness and to make people aware of how they can get support and what they need to tap into from an early stage. There's a thing called Kappa for a Cause, which Alzheimer's New Zealand has just relaunched. When I was part of it back in 1993, we were sort of jumping out of planes with people strapped to our backs in parachutes to raise awareness of dementia. It's been something that has been gradually occurring over the years, and I commend Alzheimer's New Zealand for coming together and really trying very hard to make mainstream New Zealanders whose lives have perhaps not been touched by this yet more aware of what is required. Fundraising is needed, that's true, but to me awareness raising is the thing that needs to happen. I mean, there are other initiatives as well that are helping older New Zealanders get quality of life. The Super Gold Card, from very humble beginnings, has certainly been improved on. Since 2010, this national government has invested more than $68 million in this scheme, and as of last week there are now more than 11,000 businesses, and that includes transport, retail, dentists, pharmacy, as well as utility services. For those seniors who can afford to and who have a mind to go overseas, reciprocal arrangements are now in place so that our over 65s can also receive a range of commercial discounts that the Australian seniors receive there. When I look at environment and conservation, I see as well a government that has really put its money where its mouth is and has also endeavoured to make sure that the regulations, the controls and the penalties are in place so that our environment is protected. It would be foolish not to explore what our potential is when it comes to oil and gas. We need to see what's there. Anadarko has not had much success in Taranaki. There may or may not be oil reserves off Canterbury and Otago. We do hope so indeed, but it's prudent to find out, and if they are and do find that there is oil reserves that are worth doing, there will be full public hearings to ascertain what needs to be done before those permits are actually granted. That is an enormous improvement on what Labor did. There were more than 35 grants given, just the signature of a minister, to ensure that wells could be dug. There were not, and drilled. There were not any provisions, there were not any safeguards, there were no penalties and fines put in place. Labor compounded that problem, along with their cronies in the Green Party, by not supporting the exclusive economic zone legislation. We have now put in place very good measures and provisions, $10 million fines and so forth for people who do not do what they are supposed to do. I would hope that when you look at us on balance as a government and see that what we're doing with marine reserves, the Honourable Dr Nick Smith has certainly made huge gains here. We're effectively expanding our protected territorial sea by 7%, from 7% rather to 9.5%, which is very close to New Zealand's target of 10%, and that's part of the UN Convention on Biological Diversity. Our coastal policy statement our benchmarks for water and how we need to maintain water treatment and to clean up the waterways which have really, over a very long period of time, degraded and deteriorated. So it's important that we ensure that these things continue. When it comes to the war on 1080, I think once again we have led the charge there. The battle for our birds ensures that we will be able to cut through some of the more emotive arguments that have surrounded the space in the 20 to 30 years that I've been involved and interested in horticulture and conservation. 1080 aerial drops are the weapon that we need to ensure that our New Zealand native birds do not perish. 2.5 million of them die annually, and we don't want that to continue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable David Parker.
Mr. Speaker.